Strong winds delayed the start of the Supersports, while Kevin Curtin blew off the second row of the grid when they did get away. By lap 2, he was leading. 5 fought it out over the first few laps, but by halfway it had become a 2-horse race, with Sebastian Charpentier and Curtin clearing away from the field. Charpentier going on to win, leaving Curtin runner-up at home for the second successive year, but earning valuable championship points and a 5th career podium finish. Surfing and Surfest's main event, the Energy Australia Open, begins tomorrow, but the next wave of talent shone today in the Protein Finals at Newcastle Beach. In an all-Bronte board riders girls final, Nicole Atherton scored a rare win over rival Jessie Miley-Dyer in the Open girls. Former Tassie surfer Dion Agius now calls the Gold Coast home, but he's sure to have a soft spot for Newcastle now after winning the under-20 men's final.
Like lots of little girls, Chloe Banks loves to make things. She created this special jar to house something precious. Inside is a medical device known as a port, and until this day it had been a big part of Chloe's life. She was diagnosed with leukemia at 15 months. The port, or intravenous device, was inserted underneath her skin to help administer chemotherapy and other treatment. Chloe finished therapy 6 months ago. She doesn't need the port anymore, so when it was removed, she gave it to her doctor with strict instructions.
Give it to a boy or girl.
For her, a port was, everyone's got a port. A port says like your arm or a leg. And for her to give that away to someone else really is very special.
It's a symbolic gesture. Doctors use new ports for each patient, but it's a sign of how far she's come.
It's such an emotional roller coaster that when you get to days like this, you sort of, wonder what you're feeling, but it's most certainly excitement.
Chloe will need ongoing care, but her family's looking forward to a healthy future. And with her bags packed, there was only one thing left to do.
Let's take my pony home.
Hopefully she won't see these rooms again for a while yet. Natasha Bayersdorf, NBN News.
How are you feeling, Chappelle?
But his key message is of a new era in Australia. Canberra strengthen its position in Asia.
Yesterday, Prime Minister Howard and I
Oh, it'll be hard to head back, especially on a day like this. When this interview's over, I might duck down to Dixon Park and catch a few waves.
He's hurting in both body and mind, but Andrew Johns hopes hard work will cure both, leaving no stone unturned in a bid to regain full strength to a body still recovering from that knee injury. He knows it will take time. It's the same scenario for his side, which is reeling from its worst start to a season.
It's the hardest time I've had in my footy career, and it hurts. It cuts to the bone. But we've got to hang in there.
There's no denying the club has been forced to blood a host of young players before their time in the wake of a huge injury toll. But there's little hiding recent performances either.
Just inexperience. We're making silly errors, and it's just lapse of concentration and players relaxing when they shouldn't.
He never expected to be selected in the Kangaroos today and admits he would have been embarrassed had he been. His priority this season now lay in restoring pride for himself and his club.
It does mean something to me. I'd love to play rep footy, but I've just got to get back playing at a level I'd like to, and I'm nowhere near at a position to play rep footy.
Newcastle returns home for the first time this season at the weekend, where the captain will simply lead by example as the club starts the climb back.
We've just got to stick tight, and we're getting players back, and I'm sure it's going to turn. We've just got to hang tight.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
It's been a long and painful road for Robin and Bruce Keenan, who lost their son more than 3 years ago after being cared for at 2 Hunter hospitals. Bryce Keenan suffered 2 broken legs and a broken arm in a car accident and was initially treated in John Hunter Hospital's intensive care unit in November 2001 before being transferred to the Royal Newcastle for rehabilitation. An inquest being heard by Deputy State Coroner Carl Milovanovic has heard how Mr Keenan complained of a sore throat and breathing difficulties while being cared for at the Royal. On the morning of December 9, 2001, he went into respiratory arrest and suffered a heart attack before being taken to the John Hunter for specialist treatment. Bryce died 4 days later. A statement read to the court on behalf of Associate Professor Ivan Young from Sydney's Royal Prince Alfred Hospital heard the death could have been avoided. Mr Young says there was evidence that the deceased had an unrecognised pneumonia and that it appears it was not treated adequately. Dr Leon Kleinman, who had treated Bryce after his accident, said there was nothing to indicate that he had signs of pneumonia. The inquest is expected to last 2 weeks. Colleen West, NBN News.
On the front row of the season opening race, everything seemed to be going so well in Casey Stoner's return to the 250s, but from the start things quickly unravelled. Falling back as far as 17th, Stoner had a job just finding room as he worked his way back. Through some and around others, the 19-year-old was thrashing his Aprilia to the limit. By lap 8, he was into 4th and powering. On the back of Randy de Pernay's bad luck, Stoner soon found himself in 3rd, and given what start he'd given the leaders, it was a huge effort. But just as things looked good, he got the trackside view no one wants. Stoner unhurt, but unhappy all the same. After crashing out here as a comfortable leader on the 125s last year, it was hard to take. A lack of swell for most of Surfest prevented ideal conditions for the historic 20th running of the event. Organisers, however, said yesterday's crowd rivalled previous years as thousands packed Newcastle Beach to see Mick Fanning win the men's contest.
There was 12 days of 900 competitors come through here, 7 events, very good crowds all the way through. Some bad weather sort of made it a bit hard during the week.
However, Councillor Helen O'Neill has called on Newcastle City Council to do more to promote Surfest. While the event brings around $1.3 million into Newcastle's economy each year, she says measures like putting up signs advertising Newcastle as the home of Surfest would increase interest.
If we don't welcome them to our city via a banner or whatever, then why would you come back?
I definitely agree. There should be some more recognition to the event and to the beaches around here, and some prominent signage would go and wouldn't go astray.
Councillor O'Neill has also called for Newcastle Council to help organisers provide better facilities for Surfest spectators in the future.
Where was the shade? Where was the amenity to go and get a coffee? Where was the extra toilets open? Things like that.
Todd Nardi, NBN News. The Waratah Police showed off their haul today. After catching 8 drivers at the weekend, another 2 vehicles were confiscated this morning, all allegedly involved in illegal street racing.
We've certainly had enough education within the media now about this practice and how dangerous it is. And obviously some core element out there is not learning, so we'll continue with this enforcement approach.
While drag racing on the long and straight Greenleaf Road on Kooragang Island is not exactly new, for those who laid rubber on Saturday, it was an expensive night. 14 traffic infringement notices were issued for burnouts, street racing and 1 for drink driving. One driver charged with allegedly doing a burnout had an infant sitting in the back. Police say there was at least 100 spectators and around 40 cars involved in the illegal street racing on Kooragang Island. Some vehicles had travelled from as far as Scone and Muswellbrook. The confiscated cars will be kept for 3 months, with drivers charged for storage and towing fees, as well as the traffic fines. Police say it could cost individuals up to $3,000, while 2 offenders from the raid won't get their car back at all.
And certainly I don't know if a lot of people are aware that on a second offence the car will be confiscated and sold.
Waratah Police have pledged to continue the crackdown on drag racing until it's wiped out. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
Asthma is the nation's most widespread chronic health problem, and to make it worse, when sufferers come down with a cold, it can bring on severe attacks. It's because their defences are way down, and after studies on particular cells that line the respiratory tract, researchers know why.
We're able to identify an abnormality in the cells that we acquired from people with asthma.
Research revealed that the infected cells from healthy people release a potent antiviral protein, interferon beta, and will shut down before a cold virus can reproduce. But it's a different story for asthmatics.
We found that the asthmatic cells, the virus grew extremely well and grew at least 7 times more than what we saw in the healthy normal cells.
What's more, the defective cells produce less of the antiviral protein, allowing the virus to attack neighbouring cells. With the cell defect discovery, researchers at the Hunter Medical Research Institute can now look at finding new forms of treatment.
The current treatments we have are at best incomplete in their ability to stop people from getting acute attacks of asthma due to colds, and so we do need something that's more effective in preventing that from happening.
Here's an example of just how teachable and trusting the Australian stock horse can be. Despite not being able to see the drum he's standing on, this horse responds to the gentle directions of his rider to perform an impressive balancing act. The Australian stock horse developed from bloodstock transported to the colony on the First Fleet in 1788. And while they were once a crucial companion for stockmen, bushrangers and soldiers, today it's sporting ability they're becoming renowned for.
We're constantly getting emails from all around the world saying, we're reading about these Australian stock horses, how do we get one?
Leading Australian breeders are hoping to join other equine producers who currently supply North America with around 30,000 horses that are imported annually. This year, the Australian Stock Horse Society will make its debut trade mission to Canada, where it's hoping to rein in business opportunities by promoting the so-called breed for every need.
It's a good, clean Australian product and we're taking on the world with it.
There's also been interest from China to service a boom in recreational and sports riding.
We've got nationally accredited coaches that can go overseas, particularly in China. They're looking for that knowledge. So there's a great opening for horse people over there.
Colleen West, NBN News.
Transport Minister John Watkins hailed it good news. The $262 million 81-carriage extension of the Sydney Outer Suburban Railcar contract bolstered United Guinean's order book, but the reality is that was the last of the government money which had been earmarked for EDI Cardiff's controversial Millennium Train and public train building as we've known it.
The Oscars that Guinean are currently making will be the last locally produced and manufactured rolling stock in New South Wales, and that's a disaster for our region.
The next 500 rail cars for City Rail are being built under a private-public partnership. While the Millennium Trains had 70% local content, the next order only requires 20% local involvement, dramatically reducing the need for skilled tradespeople.
Bought off the shelf, brought to Australia, have some bogies fitted to them, which may be sourced overseas in any case, and that would simply be it.
That's contrary to Hunter Minister and then Transport Minister Michael Costa's commitment at the height of the Millennium Train contract dispute of a steady purchase program to maintain the rolling stock industry's skill base.
Now, he's on the hook, and we're going to keep him on the hook. We want that 20% policy reversed. We're pleading with the Premier to get involved and reverse it.
Gary Blair, NBN News. They're tiny, best seen under a microscope, and there are 250,000 of these QX-resistant Sydney rock oyster spat available to help Hawkesbury producers affected by the devastating virus outbreak get back into business.
We do have technology now to produce disease-resistant oysters, and the results of our research have shown they're quite resistant to QX, and it does offer a prospect for them to purchase new stock, and in a few years' time they'll have oysters to market again.
A team led by Dr John Nell and funded by the state government, the oyster industry and the Fisheries Research Development Corporation has spent 15 years developing the resistance to QX, or Queensland Virus of Unknown Origin, at the Port Stephens Fisheries Centre.
Each generation that we select oysters from, we get about 10 to 20% improvement. And the oysters we've got available to the farmers now are the fourth generation of selected lines, so they should do better than that.
QX outbreaks have moved up the coast from Sydney over the past decade, and Port Stephens producers are closely monitoring the disease, which is one of the worst known to agriculture. New South Wales Farmers Association Oyster Committeeman Richard Hamlin-Harris has assured seafood consumers QX-affected stock are being kept away from the market.
But once this parasite hits oysters, as it has done in the Hawkesbury, it's absolutely disastrous in terms of marketing. They're just totally unsaleable, and nobody would attempt to sell.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Winless after 4 games, it's the Knights' worst start to a season in the club's 18-year history. Because of delays finishing the new grandstand, the first 4 games have been played away. This week will be at home, and Coach Hagan believes that's just the boost his boys need.
I think there's a genuine concern there for the team at the moment, given that we are a bit light on and we are struggling, but no question that Sunday the supporters of the team will be out in force, and you can't put a value on that.
Plenty of value too on Danny Badiris. The hooker completed a solid training session today and has a good chance to make his long-awaited return this weekend after shoulder and elbow surgery.
I guess we'll know a bit more about that in the next day or so, and all the indicators at the moment are he's recovered really well from surgery a couple of weeks back. He's talking very positively about playing. If he gets through the rest of the week and he's keen to play, well, obviously we'd love for him to play, and he'd be a tremendous boost for the team and for the fans that come and watch the team on Sunday.
Behind the scenes, the privatisation of the club is still grabbing headlines, with businessman and Jets soccer team owner Con Constantine keener than ever to buy the Knights and bail them out of financial strife.
The mega dollar, the sponsorship dollar is no longer there. Let's see the unfortunate thing. And we've got to have money to get them to the next level. And the Knights are one of the best clubs, I believe, under better circumstances. There's nothing to stop them from being number one.
The Knights held an emergency board meeting last night to discuss its financial position without a major sponsor. The directors resolved to set up a subcommittee to investigate ways to bring money in, but say a sell-off is still off the agenda.
There was not a lot of support around the table for models of privatisation that are being tossed up.
Con says he'll throw in $3 million straight away if he was to buy the club, and says the red and blue would stay at home.
But I give an undertake to the people of Newcastle, the Knights will always remain in Newcastle. No one else can give that undertake, no one. Because once they buy the club, there's nothing stopping them from transferring the licence to anywhere they like. And that's reality.
I'd rather not talk on Con's offer. We don't have anything in writing from Con.
Whatever happens, the Knights are still tops in the eyes of these supporters. They're sitting in the grandstand for 24 hours straight as part of a competition to win a season pass. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Dr Richard Drew has been practising at Dora Creek in southern Lake Macquarie for nearly 30 years. It's a fast-growing area, but as the town booms, GPs are steeling themselves for bust.
We have had to increase our hours to accommodate some of the demand, but you can only do that so much.
It's a situation facing doctors around the Hunter, the West Lakes and Maitland regions the worst affected.
It's absolutely a crisis, no question about that.
In a new analysis, the Hunter Urban Division of General Practice has found while doctor numbers have increased slightly over the past few years, the growth isn't keeping pace with the population, and we're not seeing enough recruits out of Newcastle Medical School.
We're getting about 5 a year out of the medical school coming to general practice, and we need about 20 minimum.
Meanwhile, existing GPs are forced to shoulder a bigger workload.
All this builds up stress on the practices and the doctors and the patients.
In America, doctors are helping to fill the gaps with the use of so-called medical assistants who perform both medical and administrative duties under supervision. It's a trend being watched very closely here in the Hunter.
Adding that workforce to our practices would make some difference to reducing the workload on GPs.
It's just one of a range of possible solutions being put to governments. Natasha Bayersdorf, NBN News.
It's a long way from the ocean, but seafood found a welcome home among the vineyards at Tyrrell's today. 3,000 gourmet food and wine lovers came to see what the fuss about the latest It wine, Semillon, was all about.
It's got delicate fruits and there's sort of medium acid wines. And not only they are good as a young wine to drink, but they've also got that potential to lay down and age gracefully over 10, 15 years plus.
Renowned wine expert Peter Bourne gave more seasoned tasters a deeper understanding of the white variety, while cooking demonstrations showed salivating audiences how Semillon is best enjoyed.
Seafood is quite oily, and the citrus characteristics of Semillon actually counteract the oily flavours of the seafood and leave your palate lovely and fresh.
Less well known than other wine varieties, local vineyards hope giving the public a greater understanding of Semillon will lead to better sales. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
Take a steep slope, add a couple of big rail slides and some man-made snow and you're snowboarding. Winter is obviously too far away for these hardcore riders who took to the improvised slope today, organised as part of Youth Week.
Yeah, it's a bit steep, but it's really fun.
Riding this setup is a lot harder than riding an actual mountain covered in real snow, and a crash is likely to result in grass burns. Spectators were close to the action, some closer to the melting snow than others. The event is a first, and its Newcastle-based organisers are hoping to develop the concept and take it to other cities. Today's crowd was revved up by the action, while the riders are tonight nursing a few bumps and bruises. After a week of sailing against almost 200 boats from throughout the state, Gosford's Daniel Turner and Daniel Amblin won the event in their 49er.
The light winds, we have a fair bit of speed over all the other guys, so we managed to pull it off every day, so it's good.
In the same division, but in a slower boat, the 505 class, Kyle Langford and Will Ryan from Cole Point finished the event in third. And when the winning boat is faster, you need to sail even better.
You just have to try and sail your own race and really try and focus on your own boat speed and just getting the best out of the boat as you can. It all comes down in the end. With the yardstick, it's like a handicap system. They interrelate the boats of how fast they go, and we've got to just try and do our best.
Lake Macquarie's Jamie Woods took second spot in his 505, rounding out a week of solid school sailing.
To some it may seem old-fashioned, but steam-powered engines are still fascinating to thousands.
Well, I believe it's still the cleanest form of power. Yes, the old traditional, you could smell the coal and the soot for anyone that lived along a railway track, but there's a passion there for it.
The glory days of rail travel and farm machinery from yesteryear is what Steamfest is all about, and the 3801 proved today it's still got plenty of puff. A very popular part of Steamfest is the train rides into town, but organisers are already thinking about where they'll redirect the engines when the rail line is cut off at Broadmeadow.
Just have to find, another area that wants us to put 20, 30,000 people into it for tourism.
Tomorrow's Train and Tiger Moth race is expected to draw the biggest crowd when it kicks off at Broadmeadow Station at 3:30 p.m. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
In the crisp morning air and through a thick salt ash fog, riders prepared their mounts with plenty of TLC for the 40-kilometre test of courage and fitness that lay ahead. After a last-minute shoe job that tested the farrier's mettle, it was out onto the wide-open spaces of Stockton Beach and the dunes. The key for these riders is to complete the course without putting too much stress on the horse.
When they get back from the ride, they have a pretty comprehensive vet check, and the vets will pick up any sort of overriding.
It's easier going on the hard-packed sand, but not all the horses will go that close to the waves, so most have to slug it out in the soft stuff. A stop at the fishermen's huts for a drink and a sponge bath takes some of the pressure off, but it's all in a day's work in this special discipline of endurance riding.
Each ride you wonder if you can get through the rigours of the track or what's on track, and whether you can actually make all those kilometres and get back and still have a fit and happy horse at the end of it.
The new stand was an impressive sight from the air today as fans steadily filed in ahead of the big game. When finished, it'll house 12,500 people, taking the ground capacity to 26,500. Despite delays in the building process, the stand was only short today by 1,500 seats.
The bird's eye view of watching the game is equal to anything else in the game. I think the catering facilities here will be superb.
From silver service high up to sausage rolls and pies below, the fans have given the new stand the thumbs up.
I'm happy with it, very happy.
Very nice. Great, mate. Great. Good views.
The finished stand will be officially opened when the Knights play the Broncos in June.
Skateboarders may not enjoy the cleanest of reputations among older generations, but hundreds of them used today to show they were competitive, talented and in no way antisocial. The first ever Why Not Schoolies skateboard competition brought quite a crowd to Newcastle South Skate Park, with friendly rivalry and huge potential in all age divisions.
If they can get the coverage and the sponsorship, which Newcastle is starting to get a lot of in skateboarding because it's getting really good, then a lot of kids are going to start to make it.
The idea behind the competition, which was the council's final Youth Week event, was to improve the appeal and character of the sport by showing the public how social and skillful it is. From the skate park to the stage, and a record 1,207 entries are competing at another school holiday favourite, the Classical Ballet Eisteddfod at the Griffith Duncan Theatre. Regarded as one of the most prestigious Eisteddfods on the east coast of Australia, it comes as no surprise that past competitors have moved on to global success.
Over the years, our scholarship winners have danced with the Australian Ballet, gone on to be principals. A lot of them go to Europe, they go to the National Ballet and other ballet companies in England.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
In the crisp morning air and through a thick salt ash fog, riders prepared their mounts with plenty of TLC for the 40-kilometre test of courage and fitness that lay ahead. After a last-minute shoe job that tested the farrier's mettle, it was out onto the wide-open spaces of Stockton Beach and the dunes. The key for these riders is to complete the course without putting too much stress on the horse.
When they get back from the ride, they have a pretty comprehensive vet check, and the vets will pick up any sort of overriding.
It's easier going on the hard-packed sand, but not all the horses will go that close to the waves, so most have to slug it out in the soft stuff. A stop at the fishermen's huts for a drink and a sponge bath takes some of the pressure off, but it's all in a day's work in this special discipline of endurance riding.
Each ride you wonder if you can get through the rigours of the track or what's on track, and whether you can actually make all those kilometres and get back and still have a fit and happy horse at the end of it.
Okay, Andrew, all the obvious. How are you feeling, mate?
Yeah, pretty sore. Really, there's not too much pain. It's obviously got it in control with some pain relief, but just a little discomfort. Just it's a real weird feeling. Disappointing, considering yesterday I thought that it's probably the best game I played. So, but you know, my spirits are still pretty high. I'm only going to miss 6 games, so looking forward to coming back.
You say you're going to hit the training paddock as early as next week. Is that a realistic opposition?
Yeah, they said I should be right in a week or so to start light training. So yeah, I'll be back in the gym Monday and probably start running in a fortnight. So mate, the hunger's still really there, especially after yesterday's performance. I can't wait to get back out there.
The question about retirement has been mooted in the past if you suffered another serious one, but obviously you can allay our fears.
Yeah, no way in the world, especially after yesterday's. The way I played, I was really happy the way I went personally, and it's great to play in front of the big stadium. You know, I even stepped a few times off the right foot and drove off it a few times in defence. So it's made me even hungrier, if anything. So I can't wait to get back.
Yeah, you really look like as a team and as a player yourself that you turned the corner, and obviously that only adds to the frustration of what happened.
Yeah, it does, Jimmy. I was shattered to find out that we didn't win the game. We done all the hard work the first 60 minutes and just made crucial lapses in part of the game, and it just comes with the inexperience of the side. But I think we're turning the corner, but we just got to start winning those close ones.
This is the latest shot fired in the war against graffiti. In a lightning raid, council staff painted this section of railing white at South Newcastle Beach this morning. And given the colourful surroundings, boy does it stand out. General Manager Janet Dorr wants to make a deal with the graffiti gangs. They'll get a large area dedicated to their work if they stick to that area.
We will be turning over quite a large section of the wall, but not the railings, not the buildings. They will be clearly restricted to panels on the wall here.
How long will your white paint last today?
I'm hoping that it will last and maintain its clarity, just to show how the rest of the area can look like when we do paint it over.
Some locals say it's a great idea.
All the stuff on the stairs here and stuff, just get rid of all that and basically keep all the good stuff on the wall.
But others from a different generation aren't as sympathetic.
No, because they gave them an area, I believe, here, and they've just gone outside, so you're pooped in your own nest.
The Mayor and General Manager are this week meeting with some local graffiti artists to try and sell the deal. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It was a sick and sorry sight for all league fans, but for Newcastle, it's just another blow in a season full of hard knocks. Teammates left today pondering life without their captain yet again.
Yeah, it's a really difficult time, so I mean, it's important to try and stay as positive as we can.
It must be getting hard for Daniel Abraham to keep his chin up though. After missing most of last season, he's set to miss the rest of this one after suffering a horrible lower leg break. Fullback Dustin Cooper also gone for up to 8 weeks after tearing muscle from the bone. The game itself was another heartbreaker for the club, which looked the goods back on home turf. With Johns up to his old tricks, the Knights held a 20-0 lead as a drought-breaking win was within reach. Then came the injuries and a Warriors team that finished full of running to claim an incredible come-from-behind win. While the pressure mounts, patience must remain.
You know, we've made a pact, to keep working hard together and stay as positive as we can.
It's about how we respond to these sort of challenges. So we've got another one coming up against the Bulldogs on Sunday.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Starving for some good news, the Knights can rest easy, in respect to the Eastern Grandstand anyway. Open for business yesterday, it was well received by fans, even if the match didn't go to plan for locals.
They had a great view of the game, they felt comfortable.
Regular visitors to the ground have settled in, staking their claim on the new seats, not all of them covered by the awning.
We decided not to pay the extra money and go upstairs. We've sat in the rain for 10 years, so it doesn't hurt us.
Without a major sponsor, the grandstand might give the Knights some bargaining power when attracting corporate deals. Whether it does, though, remains to be seen.
In the future, it's been fairly hard sell this year, not actually having something to show people.
With almost everything in place, there is some cosmetic work that needs doing, and the ISC Trust now expects the grandstand to be complete within 6 weeks.
Up on the upper deck, we're finishing off all the canteens and bar areas up there, just doing final touches to a lot of finishes throughout the building.
Adam McKilrick, NBN News. It's a day of tradition and culture. It also, of course, marks the official end to many academic careers. Almost 4,000 students will graduate this year from the Callaghan and Central Coast campuses of the University of Newcastle. Today it was the Faculty of Education and Arts. Most of the graduates bound for the classroom.
It's certainly a good feeling to finally have graduated after 4 years and get on to our teaching careers.
It was good at uni, but now I'm glad to get out there and actually work.
It is indeed a proud moment, especially for the graduates who've juggled family and study.
Decided at 36 that I'd go back to university and get a degree.
And you finally got that piece of paper in your hands. How does it feel?
I'm going home to celebrate, big time.
Behind the smiles, though, there's the unpleasant matter of recovering the university's massive debt. Vice-Chancellor Professor Nick Saunders has confirmed voluntary redundancies are a very real option, but no offers have yet been made to staff.
We haven't at the moment given any feedback about that yet because we're still in discussion with the unions.
Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
Starting from way back in 12th, it was little wonder Stoner had to wave for fans back home to pick him out in the pack. After that, it was all hands on deck as the Hunter Valley teenager weaved and raced his way towards the front. Pouncing on any opportunity to pass, there was little thought on the rain-affected track of self-preservation. It was all about position. Well and truly, up into 4th after just a handful of laps, before moving even further ahead. He then engaged into a 3-way tussle, with good mate Danny Pedrosa among those proving hard to shake. 3 became 5 as the leading pack fought it out over the closing stages. Stoner shuffling back as far as 5th as the lead changed several times. It was tight stuff, and while Stoner didn't back off, he did offer a sign for those who suffer road rage. He took the lead for good a lap later, and after a thrilling final few corners, Stoner crossed for his first 250cc championship win. He gave and got the big thumbs up from everyone, especially his team, who have kept the faith in the former 125cc rider. This win, though, not expected to be his last, as Stoner moved to 5th overall in the rider standings.
Fresh back from Geneva, Keith was showing his silver medal to his board of directors at Classic Australian Building Products at Raymond Terrace today. Keith's been making and marketing his interlocking imitation stone concrete blocks for the past 15 years, and they've become a familiar sight throughout the state.
There was a few prototypes, many years of experimentation, getting it through the councils, getting it through the Australian standards. That was very difficult.
The blocks are assembled without mortar, meaning rapid laying by relatively unskilled labour. If you want to go higher, just pour in concrete and the structure can be strong enough even for seawalls. Keith expects the award in Europe will give him the chance to spread sales further.
Over the years, we succeeded, and now we're at a stage where it's marketed in New South Wales. Hopefully we're looking to market it all the way through Australia.
It was on this stage where youth band Immune performed in public for the first time at a country music night 2 years ago. As you've probably guessed though, this is no country music act.
I just want people to see Immune as their own genre. Like, this is radio music, this is pop music, this is Immune.
Brothers James and Cameron Overend, Elliot Lewis and Matt Walker finished second in this year's Youth Rock Festival. They have a management contract, are recording their first album and won the Songwriters Award named after their idol Silverchair.
Yeah, I usually generally write about personal experiences.
Immune won the Encouragement Award at last year's Youth Rock Festival, an event Lambton Quintet Daylight Robbery won, but have since turned to acting as well. They've just starred in a TV commercial selling Coca-Cola.
Just to be around such high-profile people and to be involved in such a multi-million-dollar corporation to advertise it was a big honour.
Look out for the boys from May the 8th.
After losing an NBL franchise once before in the Newcastle Falcons, no one wanted to see a second in the Hunter Pirates slip by as well, least of all the league itself. With the deal struck to sell the licence to a Newcastle-based consortium, all that remains now is for the NBL to endorse the transfer, and so far they like what they see.
I don't want to go on a limb and preempt what the board's going to determine, but I have every confidence that the team's going to stay here in the Hunter region and be successful.
The NBL General Manager was convinced after meetings today in Newcastle that the new consortium has the financial capacity to take on the club.
I've looked at the budget, I've looked at the people that are involved in it, and I've looked at a number of these things over the years with new franchises, new licenses, and to me it all stacks up.
The NBL board should have an answer in a week to 10 days. The sooner the better for the club, with most of its players now listed as free agents. In soccer, former Newcastle breaker and NBN Soccer League player Josh Maguire has signed to play in the A-League soccer competition with the Auckland-based New Zealand Knights. The local franchise, meanwhile, the Newcastle Jets, hope to seal a deal with a European-based marquee player sometime tonight.
This simple steel bracelet has made a world of difference for carers like Heather McGecky, whose 68-year-old husband has Alzheimer's.
It took the fear away from me that I was going to lose him, and it gave him independence to be able to walk alongside me without me having to hold on to his hand.
Around Around 300 people in New South Wales are registered with Safely Home, a joint initiative of the police and Alzheimer's Australia, which is proving successful in returning home those who wander. The bracelet features a personal identification number and toll-free telephone number, which is linked to a police database.
The database does hold a lot of information, such as their own personal details, where they've been, their next of kin details, a full description.
It also includes a list of places a person is most likely to go, including old residences.
It means they don't have to, hang around a police station or be taken to hospital and delay returning them home.
Today, healthcare workers were learning how they can utilise the system, which was launched during Missing Persons Week in August 2003. It's hoped the system will be taken up in greater numbers, reducing the 1,000 or so people over the age of 65 who are reported missing every year. Colleen West, NBN News. How this could be considered a form of entertainment has Diana Corving dumbfounded.
I'm just devastated. I can't believe that somebody would deliberately go out and do this after all the work that we've put into it.
250 hours to be exact, and around $8,000 in plants and materials. Seedlings were ripped from the reserve, which sits on the outskirts of Maitland, and others were trodden on, while some of the more established trees were broken off at the base, giving them a certain death sentence. It's believed the attack was made sometime on Sunday night, just hours after Landcare volunteers had planted native shrubs and trees, including bottlebrush, blue gum and wattle.
I was at home getting ready for a job interview, and my neighbour knocked on the door. He walks his dog past here every morning, and by the look on his face, I knew there was something wrong.
Volunteers have spent the past 12 months tidying up the popular Travellers' Rest spot and say they will see the project through to completion despite the setback. And while it seems bad news does travel fast, there's some good news tonight with a local landscaping firm promising 600 seedlings so work can continue. Colleen West, NBN News.
This is possibly the worst day of Bob Lawrence's life. Awoken with the news of his 27-year-old daughter's arrest and the gut-wrenching realisation that his beloved girl may face a death sentence in Bali. Today he described Renee as a great kid who got in with the wrong crowd.
She's got the loveliest nature you've ever come across in your life, and everybody loved her.
Mr. Lawrence didn't know Renee was going to Bali and says she wouldn't have been able to afford the trip. He believes that she's been preyed upon, the organisers taking advantage of her dire financial situation.
She's the most gullible kid you'll ever meet in your life, and she, of late, she has been, well, short of cash, so I don't know, she's been pretty desperate lately.
It's believed Australian Federal Police have been watching the group for 10 weeks before tipping off Indonesian authorities. That's left Bob Lawrence seeing red.
I think they all should have been let fly into Australia and arrested here. The Australian government know the rules of Bali and what can happen. This death penalty, I don't go along with this death penalty.
Renee's mother and stepfather, who also live at Wallsend, say they're stunned by the news. She was rushed off to a doctor this morning for treatment of shock. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The revolving door at Newcastle continues to spin, with Mark Hughes returning to the top grade just a week back from rib damage he suffered in round one. Prop Adam Woolnough was injured in the same match, but hasn't played since due to a recurring neck injury. But making his way back via the lower grades just wasn't an option at a club low on personnel.
We want blokes that have played first grade where possible. He's certainly a good first grade player, and I think he'll do a good job off the bench.
The coach has applied the theory across the board, with Steve Witt named at halfback in place of the injured Andrew Johns, a position he's been in before, as has Danny Badiris in terms of assuming the captaincy, a position now crucial given experienced players are thin on the ground with the Bulldogs coming to town.
We're going to go out there and give it our best shot. I know we're capable of causing something. We're not far off causing something, whether it's an upset or a real solid win.
The fact Newcastle has no test players for the first time in 5 years, perhaps a blessing this weekend.
But I'm happy that they're not playing. And I'm pleased the Bulldogs get 5 backing up, so we'll take that if we can get it.
At present, you wouldn't begrudge Newcastle anything. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Professor Peter Newman has studied the impact public transport has on a city's wealth all over the world. The result, he says, was clear. The richest cities have well-developed rail links.
It's absolutely critical for sustainability to have viable rail lines, and no other city that I know is taking rail lines out.
Except, of course, Newcastle. Professor Newman, the New South Wales Sustainability Commissioner, says businesses will suffer when the 4-kilometre line closes and the service is replaced by buses.
He's had a number of views which have been contrary to what the government's putting out. I notice that the government hasn't necessarily taken those views.
And neither, it seems, have local groups who supported the Carr government's move to close the line. Professor Newman claims those parties may have been misinformed.
The numbers are very easy to challenge, and I've seen that done on other cities as well, including my own, where they closed the Fremantle railway line down on similar fallacious evidence, but we brought it back.
However, what's been called a dingo fence will go. Transport Minister John Watkins saying today the government won't go back on its decision to close the line. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.